Hi guys, this is Nick from Domazet Gaming, and today we are reviewing Outer Worlds. The best way to describe this game is a mixture of Fallout and Mass Effect. Sounds great, right? Let's dive in. Let's first talk about the story and setting. Now this is where the Outer Worlds shines. Obsidian has created a big, expansive world with so much lore and intriguing stories that it can even be overwhelming at times. Game starts as you as a hero is woken from a hibernation chamber on a colony spaceship by a mad scientist who looks awfully a lot like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. This is where you pick your background, your character appearance, and if you have played any RPGs before, you'll be very familiar with this, and the options here are quite varied. The whole base idea of this game is that Earth has expanded into space. Your ship was meant to send you to Halcyon system in which corporations rule the world, specifically the board. Now the board is made up pretty much of politicians who use their power to further their gain. Sound familiar? You will work alongside allies to overthrow the board or even support them. The choice here is all yours. While you set out on your adventure, you will encounter many different factions, recruit companions, and make difficult choices that impact your endgame. As I mentioned, this is where Outer Worlds is at its best. There's lots of dialogue options, relationships, alliances that you can make, secrets that you uncover just by talking to the right person and using your dialogue options to find more quests and point of interest that all your RPG fans will absolutely love. Next, we have graphics and art style. Now, this game has definitely beautiful settings and environments. There is so much potential. Unfortunately, there's really not a lot of variety here. Jumping from a planet to a planet or ship station to ship station, things don't really feel that much different. Everything kind of feels very similar. You would expect that going from one planet to another, there will be a lot of variety in building or vegetation, but for example, going from Terra 2 to Monarch feels very identical, as in you forget what planet you're on. This is very frustrating, as the potential is there, the art style and the imagination of this world is there, but there's just not enough. Now, when it comes to graphics, it is much of the same. Game does look good, but nothing really stands out that I can comment on. It's just okay. Technically speaking, graphics look good. Not much to complain about. They're not terrible, but that did not stop at any point in the game and admire the location like I've done in other games. And I've reviewed this on PC on highest setting possible. However, animation of people's faces are very good, thankfully, as a lot of the time in game is spent talking to people and in dialogue, which are really appreciated. In conclusion, the graphics and art styles are good overall, don't get me wrong, but if you're expecting to get wowed by amazing looking locations or beautiful vista at any point, you might find it disappointing. Next up we have sound and voice. This is one of the aspects of Outer Worlds where the game does a very good job. Let's start with sound, which is really great. Guns do sound very realistic. I mean, I'm not sure how a laser plasma gun would sound like, but I imagine they would like to here. It is very convincing. Voice acting is also one of the standouts with this game. I really cannot complain about it at all. The characters are fully voiced, and for a change I found them all really good. Usually in a game you will find one or two that are just terrible or plain irritating, and for a game that is very dialogue driven, it's very welcome. It is always nice to see when developers do prioritize something that gets overlooked quite a bit, such as sound and voice acting, because in my opinion, if those boxes are not ticked, it really does ruin the immersion. Good on you, Obsidian. Now let's talk about the big one, and that's gameplay. Gunplay is good, they're fun to shoot, it's very responsive, much that you would expect from a modern first person shooter slash RPG game these days. Melee weapons also feel good, but I found them a bit boring to use and are a lot more ineffective than the rage weapons. Not really sure the point of them to be honest, and why they were added to the game. Most enemies you encounter have some sort of ranged weaponry. Now, while we're on topic of enemies, there is so little variety here, or much of a challenge for that matter. Most enemies are either human soldiers or few creatures that besides the look don't really pose any tactical differences. Now in a first person game, that's fine to a degree, but this is an RPG after all, and I just found there was very little challenging combat or variety to the enemies. As the game progresses, I was really craving some sort of a challenge, uh, and just there was none. I mean, I think I did not use a health pack until last mission in the game. There was not much of a challenge, any boss fights, any sort of complexities you would expect a game that has RPG associated with it. Combat is just dull and probably the weakest aspect of this whole game. Now, as you play and level your character, each level you get about 10 skill points to spend towards different skills. It can be combat, such as range or melee, dialogue, technical, leadership, determination, etc. Then you could dive in even further. For example, once you reach skill level 50, let's say with the technical skill tree, then you start individually assigning points to either science, hacking, or engineering, which really does affect gameplay. If your lock kicking spell is high, you can get access to certain areas and shortcuts in the missions, which is really rewarding. Same goes for dialogue options. Having a high dialogue skills opens up a new dialogue with a character to get paid extra or find out secrets to help make the missions easier. Not that that's the issue in this game. You also get a perk point every 2 levels to invest in things like high health, improved critical hits, carrying capacity, and many other. There's about 30-ish perks. You will not be able to update them all, so choose carefully. To travel planet to planet, you will be using a ship called Unreliable, which is also a space where you can chat to your crew and companions, which I will get into details just now. Now it would have been nice to be able to upgrade the ship in a certain way to help in gameplay, but besides getting items sent to you by factions in your cabin, there's really not much to do in it. When it comes to traveling, there's 6 locations you can visit in this game, which are not really that big even when you get inside them, or really interesting. Nothing about the locations really did grip me. There's few little towns in each location which are pretty cool to interact with, and there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of quests, which I guess we said again is where this game really shines. But there was really no variety here, nothing fun to do on the planet. There's nothing to collect, nothing to explore. It's very, very plain and dull. And the most irritating part, there's more planets to travel to in the system, and they're there, but they're just not be able to. You can't access them. It seems like they're there for later expansions or DLCs, which is very frustrating, as this is something this base game could have really used, as the locations are just not varied and there's not much to do in them. Now, while you play, you will meet companions. In total, there are 6 you can recruit through the game. They are fully customizable. You can choose perks for them, armor, and what weapons they will carry. Also, you can interact with them and go on companion quests to help you build better relationships with them and find more about them, which is great. And again, this is where Outer Worlds is great. Storytelling and missions, which are all high quality. I have really enjoyed the dialogue stories and side quests in this game. It really got me through it in the spice of boring, bland combat. There's also different factions which you will meet and help through the game that will play and affect your end game, as there's more than one ending to this game. Another really fun feature in having options who you put as leaders of factions and who you will ally with is it's really fun. It's interactive, which is what you would expect from a good RPG. To also mention, I really did enjoy the questing in the game, as there's always more than one way to handle a mission. For example, I had to go get medical pills for one of my companions, and I could have bribed the teller at the pharmacy, or just go in and rob the place if your lockpicking skills are high enough. Or if your dialogue skill is high enough, you might have been able to persuade the person to give you these. And in these type of moments, Outer Worlds really shines and really makes you forget about all the other issues. I'm talking about issues, I think also really last thing in gameplay, which is really disappointing, is the whole crafting. You read up once the game is coming out, there'll be a workbench where you're able to upgrade your weapons and mod your armor, and it's there, but it's so unfulfilling. I wouldn't know how to even describe it. You could tinker to your weapons. So, for example, you choose a assault rifle, and you can add tinker it, buy bits, which is your currency in the game, so money, to upgrade its DPS up to a certain point. Then you can also mod your weapon. You can mod up to 3 mods to each weapon, and that's also very, very, very limited. And I think the biggest issue in this game that I found, and again, this is supposed to be not just a first person shooter, it's supposed to be an RPG. The biggest issue I've had is with the loot. Now, there is very, very limited loot variety. There's about for example, for a pistol, there's about 3 or 4 pistols, and that's about it. You find a new one which is like an upgrade of the same one, but looks identical, does exactly the same thing. That's about it. Same with the armor. It's just very, very underwhelming in that regard. And an RPG, as we all know, and I'm a huge RPG fan, is loot is one thing that you love and you want to hunt and collect. I mean, there's unique weapons in the game which are called science weapons, which are even more disappointing because there's just first very little of them, and when you do acquire one, which you usually have to do through a quest or through a little secret or jumping up to a certain point and finding them, they have, for example, there's a shrink ray, and you could shrink your enemies and switch to a different weapon and kill the enemy very quickly, which all sounds as great, but they're very, again, underwhelming and not as powerful as they seem, which is really, really a missed opportunity here. Again, this is an RPG, and what you want from RPG is loot and unique weapons, and unfortunately, there's not that much of it in this game. In conclusion, Outer Worlds is a game with so much potential, but unfortunately it really falls short on so many aspects. It is great at storytelling and questing, but the bland, boring combat really hurts it. Also, one of the biggest issues is lack of loot variety and enemies as well, which really makes it hard for me to recommend this game. Outer Worlds is a game worth playing if you are a huge RPG fan, but I would not purchase this game at a full price, as it's just not worth it. It will take you about 20 hours to do everything, and there's replayability option here, don't get me wrong. But with boring combat and lack of variety in enemies and loot, I don't really see anybody wanting to replay this game, which is truly a shame, as there's so much potential here that was unfortunately wasted. Thank you very much for watching our review. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, as we do release videos weekly.